Hello, everyone. I'm Adrian Sanabria. You might know me as the host of the Enterprise Security Weekly podcast, but today I'm here to host another installment of SE Media's In Focus. These interviews feature some of the top thought leaders in the cybersecurity space. This is an opportunity for these experts to share hindsight on recent events and foresight on where you should be focused as a cybersecurity professional in the near future. Today, we're discussing findings from Fortinet's recently released Skills Gap report. We'll be discussing connections between the cybersecurity skills gap and breaches, how breaches are impacting today's cybersecurity teams, the current state of certifications in the eyes of employers, opportunities for organizations to address the skills gap. And with all those questions and more, joining me today is Rob Rashad, Vice President, Global Training and Technical Field Enablement at Fortinet. Rob, I'm excited to go over this report with you today.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Adrian. Good to meet you, and looking forward to discussing the report. This is our third, so it's lots of interesting information we're seeing here.
Yeah, so it's definitely interesting to talk about these reports when you do have some of that prior data to look at, and it is interesting looking at you do include a lot of that data in the report, 2021, 2022, and now this is the 2023 report, correct?
That's right. Yes.
Or the data is from 2023, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's yeah. So what are some of the key themes and takeaways you're seeing now that you're looking at 3 years of data here?
Yeah. So we're definitely seeing some trends that are continuing year over year. Some obvious ones. Breaches. We're continuing to see significant repercussions for businesses. And we're really starting to see some interesting findings around executives and leaders and fines and penalties associated with these breaches that are really starting to come out in the findings now. We're really seeing organizations as we go through year to year, attributing breaches more and more to cyber skills or the shortage of cyber skills, the skills gap, and looking at addressing those skills gaps through things like certifications, industry experience, and so on. We're starting to see organizations look more and more for those relevant industry certifications. We're pleasantly surprised that the focus on hiring from diverse talent pools is something that is really quite strategic, I think. And we're seeing the numbers change a little bit there. I think the numbers they've been down slightly this year in hiring from diverse talent pools, but it's still obviously a very strategic approach to trying to fill those skills gaps.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because in the past, hiring, talent shortages and skills gap used to be kind of synonymous. But here in
Mhm.
this report, I'm seeing that, the part of the cybersecurity workforce that's already there, there's a skills gap within that group of people. And not only that, we're attributing that as one of the factors contributing to these breaches is that employees maybe don't have the training they need, don't and I spend a lot of my time doing postmortems on breaches, trying to understand why companies fail. And there's countless examples of this. Like, Equifax is a great example that we have a ton of detail on, where the job was to find a vulnerable version of a small Java library in a huge organization,
Right.
and they did not have the skills to do that. If you read the House Subcommittee report, they tried really hard to find that struts jar in their environment, didn't end up finding it, and said, "Oh, I guess it's not here." But the attackers found it a couple weeks later.
Yeah, and it's really important, it's we often think about, this skills gap and the shortage and so on about hiring new people into the organization and filling open job roles. But you're absolutely right. The threat landscape changes so quickly that we need to make sure that our existing cybersecurity professionals are being kept up to date with the new products and solutions that are out there in the market, but also making sure that they understand the threat landscape and the techniques that the attackers are using. So it's, I think, a message to anyone in the cybersecurity industry, you've signed up for lifelong learning if you're in this industry. It's not something
Mhm.
that is ever going to stop. It's definitely something where, training and education is always going to be part of your life.
Yeah, and one of the things that's concerned me is people just coming into the industry. If you get like a cybersecurity degree or you start getting some of these certifications, they tend to be very focused in just a couple of areas, just a tiny subset of cybersecurity, right? A lot of it's either security operations or penetration testing, and security is way more than security operations and penetration testing. So do we know what some of these skills are that these employees are missing that we need them to have?
Yeah, and you're right, it's very broad. I think that that in itself is becoming a little bit problematic. Certainly within the report, there's different areas that came out as being the most in demand, skills for cyber and the ones that are most difficult to find. Cloud security is definitely top of the list as, an area that's hard to find and very important. And that's kind of the more typical hard skills techie type of role that we often think about in cybersecurity. But then also things like looking at malware analysis and those sorts of things where you really need a combination of both hard skills and soft skills.
Mhm.
Looking at threat intelligence, malware analysis, and so on. There's quite a range of skills that are involved in those types of roles. And it's really I think also making it pretty difficult for recruiters to really understand the job roles and to be able to understand the job descriptions to really articulate well what they're looking for when they go out there into the marketplace. It's not like well-defined roles like an accountant and so on, where
Right.
these roles have been around for many, many years. A lot of these roles are evolving every day.
Yeah, and I've had a number of mentees over the years. I've mentored a number of people, and a lot of them did have certifications and degrees. Maybe they were associate's degrees in cyber. But the challenge I heard a lot was just that everything they found was looking for a minimum of 3 to 5 years of experience, and they come back
Right.
to me and
Right.
say, Adrian, where do I get the 0 to 3 years? So it seems like a lot of companies want to hire cyber people, but they don't want to have to train them up, right? They don't want to have to build that pipeline. They want people who are already trained up and ready to go, because there is some sense of urgency there, I imagine. So, I wonder if you have any thoughts on like how do we solve that gap where we actually do have a bunch of people trying to join the workforce, but they're being told no because they don't have that initial, that first couple years of experience. I mean, personally, I've been
Yeah.
telling them, go into IT first and then switch over to security is the advice I've been giving because I
It's
don't know what else to tell them,
yeah,
but
I
that's
mean
what I
that
did.
and that is really good advice because I think a lot of the times, skills are very, very transferable. So going into something like
Mhm.
IT and then transferring over. But I think one of the things that one of the challenges that we have to address is when we talk about or when we're talking about having that couple of years of experience. I think a lot of people sell themselves short and thinking that, well, I don't really have the experience, but in a lot of cases they may very well have the experience. Probably the best example of this is we deal a lot with veterans groups, and we have programs where we're getting veterans into cybersecurity. And that's a case where in many, many cases, they do have the experience, but it's not traditional experience. And they often will think that they don't have the experience. But when we look at a lot of our veterans, they have deep technical skills in a lot of areas that are very, very transferable, particularly into cybersecurity. So this is I think a great opportunity for us to look at, talent pools that we might not look at. to be able to find some really great talent and also at the same time, address our goals around diversity and looking at non-traditional talent pools to bring these people in to fill these job roles. So again, I think it really comes down to when we say we need experience, what is it we're really looking for that experience? And, get away from just being so focused on the traditional educational pathways.
Yeah, and just to share a small anecdote, to kind of highlight what you're saying there, Rob. Yeah, I remember hiring somebody. I was chief incident handler for a large financial services firm I was working for at the time, and I was wearing 4 or 5 hats at the time. So back when cyber forensics degrees were new, I hired somebody who had just finished a degree program with the hopes that I could train him up to replace me as chief incident handler, since he actually had a degree that said the thing that I was hiring him to do,
Right, right,
and found out that he had mostly been just trained on how to use tools and had no concept of how to investigate
right,
something, how to run an investigation. So he could load a hard drive into FTK, but then once that was done, he came to me saying, "Okay, what next?" And so that whole piece was missing. And fast forward to today, I'm mentoring somebody who's ex-law enforcement who's retired, had an injury on the job that forced him to retire.
right,
And he's got that. Like he's
right,
got 10 years of experience in understanding how to investigate something, how
right,
to write a report, how to, make sure that the facts are in there, that the report's understandable. Like the skills, he has so many skills that transfer over from that law enforcement job. But I don't know if HR folks see that when they're looking at his resume the way that they should.
Yeah, it's a very good point. And this is how we're seeing these roles evolve, right? Where I think if we go back 5 years or more, the typical cybersecurity role was the techie sitting in front of a computer, doing configuring devices and so on.
Firewall, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And now we need those skills where it's people that understand troubleshooting and they know how to do investigations.
Mhm.
It's a very different skill set. But I think when you mentioned about HR, I think a lot of the times where the challenge comes is that we might have a hiring manager who has a very specific set of skills like you just described. But in larger organizations, when that request then gets to the recruiting group within the organization, there may be things that come into play like policies that dictate, a 4-year degree,
Yeah.
trying to translate what the hiring manager is really looking for. So I think we have a lot of work to do in larger organizations where there may be that disconnect between the hiring manager and the recruiting department that has very structured requirements that don't really align well to what we need in these roles. And I think because of that, we're missing out on probably some of the best talent that's out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So speaking of what's missing, I think one of the things that came out of this report was a fairly clear idea of what organizations are looking for to reduce cyber risks, from the board on down.
Mhm.
And there's a three-pronged approach outlined in the report. Maybe you can
Yeah.
run us through that as we wrap up here.
Yeah, so I think the approach that we talk about in the report, and this is from pulling together a number of different findings and consulting with a lot of organizations, within Fortinet, within the training organization, we deal with a lot of third-party groups and NGOs around trying to solve this problem from a global perspective. But I think first and foremost, it all starts with the right tools. Clearly, we need to have the right cybersecurity tools in place. We need to make sure that we've got, the most up-to-date advanced tools and, taking a platform approach, for example, so that we've got cybersecurity across our entire infrastructure, across our entire organization. So it all starts with the right technology. But then we also clearly, as we've talked about here, we have to make sure that we're continuing to upskill the technical talent that we have in our organization. So our cybersecurity folks need to continue to update their skills. So we need on-the-job training, but it needs to go beyond just the cybersecurity folks. The IT people need to make sure that their skills are being continually updated. Cybersecurity is starting to touch more and more departments within an organization. So we can't just focus on the cybersecurity folks. We need to make sure that everyone's job that involves cybersecurity is being examined and making sure everyone's staying up to date. But then what's really becoming more and more important, and we're seeing this more and more in the reports that we do, is we need to make sure that cyber aware training is happening across our entire workforce. And we need to create a cyber aware workforce. And we really need to start thinking as an organization that cybersecurity is everyone's job in the organization. And making sure that we're creating that culture of cyber aware workers is really critically important. We often hear that people are the weakest link in cybersecurity. I think we need to change that so that we're starting to think that people are our first line of defense and our strongest line of defense, and making sure that all of our employees are cyber aware. So that's kind of the three approaches. Make sure you've got the right technology in place. Make sure you've got a good, solid training and upskilling program internally, and make sure you're taking that approach of creating a cyber aware workforce across your entire organization.
Well, you heard it from Rob. Quit slashing that training budget one quarter into the fiscal year. Keep that training budget, protect it. Thank you so much, Rob. We've been talking with Rob from Fortinet. Rob, thank you for being in focus with us today.
Thanks very much.